EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic will travel today to Washington to hold meetings with the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, as well as the US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. The Commission is hoping to advance negotiations on tariffs after weeks of deadlock. The EU, by the way, has offered to level US and EU tariffs to 0% on industrial goods. The US, by the way, currently imposes 25% tariffs on EU imports of aluminium and steel, 25% tariffs on EU cars, and 10% tariffs across the board. To take this further and for further clarity, we have with us Senior Editor of Foreign Affairs, Daniel Block. Daniel, always a pleasure to chat with you and have you on our show. I want to talk about the timing of these discussions. They seem pivotal. But do you believe this move by Donald Trump to reduce tariffs is more of a strategic maneuver to ease tensions or a genuine attempt at recalibrating US-EU trade relations?
I think it's probably both. And I would add to that mix as well that it's part of this ongoing tension in his mind between his love of tariffs and his desire to not slow the American economy or reduce the strength of the dollar or spur inflation. He has a lot of things in mind that he wants to do, and they're in tension. In fact, they're often mutually incompatible. He can't slow inflation. He can't promote economic growth. He can't have, related to inflation, low consumer prices for electronics. And he can't have the dollar be the world's reserve currency while simultaneously raising levies on products from across the board. And tech is a particularly pivotal sector because of how much relies on it, because how much money different tech products cost. And so I think the arguments that are going on about tech right now really kind of encapsulate the fight that's going on both in his own mind and among his administration about how far to go in terms of tariffs.
Absolutely. In fact, many are also arguing that this pause in tariffs offers a window of opportunity for a solid deal. But Daniel, how likely is it that this goodwill gesture will translate into concrete policy changes on both sides that are actually here to stay?
With the obvious caveat that the US president is pretty mercurial and changes his mind often. And so I'm always hesitant to make clear predictions. But having said that, I'm slightly optimistic that there will be some sort of deal.
All right.
I think what we saw after Liberation Day, as they called it, and the broad-based tariffs on every country across different goods, was that they wanted to pull back. And I imagine that the president is looking for face-saving ways in order to not just delay the implementation of broad-based across-the-board tariffs, but to actually permanently come up with various exemptions or excuses not to do what he proposed doing earlier. And so that's why I'm optimistic that there'll be some kind of deal that emerges from all this. On the other hand, the president loves tariffs and he gets angry when he feels like he's lost or he's been pulled from doing something that he wanted to do. And that's what's happened here. So I think that there are competing impulses there as well.
And in terms of the wider ramifications, the broader global trading environment has shifted dramatically in the recent years, as we understand, with protectionism on the rise. Daniel, how do you see this tariff dispute fitting into the larger picture of international trade wars? Would you say it's a harbinger of things to come, or one of the rare examples of two economic giants negotiating rather than clashing?
I think I'd say in many ways it's both, but more the former than the latter. You know, exactly what US tariffs are going to be on different products when all is said and done is unclear, but the directionality is apparent. We're moving into a world where the US is turning its back on free trade.
Right.
It's probably not going to do what Trump originally set out to do and have these sweeping, expansive tariffs on almost every country and on some territories that are not countries at all and don't even have people in them. But we're moving in this direction where there's going to be higher tariffs, and we see some retrenchment, some pulling back, but there's still 10% retaliatory tariffs on almost every country in the world. So there might be some carve-outs. There'll be some negotiating that happens as we enter in this kind of new reality where tariffs, for the United States at least, are the norm. But on the whole, I think the directionality is going that way. We're moving into a world of tariffs.
Well, Daniel, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and hear your perspective. Well, the EU Trade Commissioner will travel to Washington today to hold meetings with the US Commerce Secretary and the US Trade Representatives. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates.